Welcome back to Sasquatch and Sourdough. It's Christina here, and I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a disclaimer before we jump into tonight's episode. I would definitely recommend that this is absolutely 18 and over. We get into some dark territory here, and it's just not really appropriate for kids. Also, if you are prayerful, I would definitely go ahead and pray before this one because it is a doozy. All right, with that being said, let's get into the episode. Welcome back to Sasquatch and Sourdough. I am your host, Christina, and I have a very excitable guest, my friend Cole from the Magical Ducklings band, right?
Yeah, band. Me and myself and my wife. My wife sings sometimes, so that's good.
Awesome. So I want to read your this. I love your music, and I'm so happy that you found this podcast. So I'm going to read your description from your YouTube channel. So the Magical Ducklings psychedelic Jesus music is futuristic electronic worship featuring unusual and handmade sounds using analog, digital, classical, international, and untraditional instruments with a touch of the 80s and something from the Garden of Eden. I love that. It's amazing.
Yes. The 80s, it was a good era. It was a good year or decade for music.
Yeah, totally.
So was the 70s and the 60s and the 90s.
Yeah, for electronic music, for sure.
Yeah, this studio is called Skate Night Studio. So Skate Night kind of thing. I think of the 80s, when I was a kid. But
I love it.
There's something.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I know. I love. Oh, so we were just talking about skating something. We were talking about like graffiti tags.
Oh yeah.
And how everybody, when you were like skateboarding, everybody had their tag and like.
Oh yeah.
Especially in Baltimore, which is where I am. So.
Now, do you remember "Rock Me Amadeus" on the skate rink? That was the song.
We still go roller skating around here.
That's awesome. I love roller skating. I just wish they played 80s music.
You could probably, I don't even know if you can request. I don't even dare anymore. Like if we take the kids roller skating, I'm just like, I know I'm an old lady that complains about the music. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, auto tune.
But so, you were actually the first guest that I've had that has actually reached out, like as an audience member. Everybody else I've kind of like procured through just like stalking people on Instagram. So can you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you found the podcast?
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll start with how I found the podcast. I have a dear friend who does an amazing show called, it's a podcast called The Hidden Life is Best by Robert Frederick. And he actually told me about you because he was like, hey, I found this Christian sister who has this really cool story. Check it out. And so that's how I found you. And I was like, wow, I was just like, wow, this is really cool. It's just, it's kind of edgy. You talk about really interesting things. I wish that our Christian brothers and sisters in America would get less, just hip to what's really going out there and going on within the governments of the world and stuff like that. So it's great that you're talking about all the strange phenomenon. So, and then you talked, I really resonated with I listened to your testimony and I was like, yeah, that's like, you're talking about being a goth kid and all these bands. I was like, oh yeah, I remember.
For sure. Yeah. I definitely, I think it was the Unrefined podcast where I was talking about, what was it? Oh, they asked me a really great question, and it was like, how did I know that like Jesus was actually like kind of changed my heart? Like we kind of got into that.
Wow.
I feel like that's a good question for people to sort of ask.
Hmm.
And I told a story on there about how I used to like run into all these through metal shows. There's all these like kind of trained kids, like homeless kids, and I always like just hated them. I don't know what it was. I had such anger for them.
Mm.
And when I got saved, I noticed that I started, would see them at like Walmart because it was like festival season. And
Mm.
God just started doing something in my heart and like broke my heart for them
Mm.
and just inspired me to to help them and not hate
Yeah,
them. So that was like kind of the first turning point for me.
that's awesome.
But you definitely have, so you sent me an email and you have just an incredible testimony yourself. I would love for you to kind of like jump into that, but I do want you to definitely talk about your music and kind of how that started. I know it's like a big journey, so we'll kind of just
Yeah.
have to just follow along with your story.
Well, let's see. Should we talk music or would you like testimony or what would be a fun way
Well,
to
I
go?
think so. I wonder if do you because I kind of know how the story ends, and it ends in an awesome way.
Yeah.
But do you think, did you always have kind of like a heart for psychedelic music? Were you always into psychedelic music?
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, I didn't even know about it until well, when I was a kid. Okay, I grew up and my parents were atheists, but very creative. Like my dad was a filmmaker in Dallas, Texas, and did independent films and worked with public television and stuff like that. My mom's an art teacher, was an art teacher, and they were very artistic, very interesting, kooky kind of. They kind of hit more of the beatnik era than the hippies era,
Nice. Yeah.
and so I was surrounded by a lot of creativity. A lot of music. They played a lot of bluegrass and blues, and so there was a lot of, I guess, openness to thought, except Christianity. It's like that. I didn't know anything about the Bible. I didn't know anything about Jesus. Never went to church. My parents just laughed. They were just like, "Ah, it's just televangelists," and I didn't know anything about the doctrines or what Jesus did or the cross or any of that stuff. It was just a complete enigma. Um, and when I was a kid, I was very, I guess I would call myself kind of an empathic type of character trait personality. So um, very artistic and that kind of thing. So I was very sensitive as a kid, very like, and I remember being drawn to the spiritual world very young. Like 8, 9, 10. Um, I would see the beauty in nature, and there was just something that I mean, I think most of us as real children before a lot of trauma maybe or other things we do just naturally believe in creator god. It's just kind of a natural childlike thing, which is wonderful. And but I remember sitting I was alone. It was a summer vacation. I was at my elementary school playground, which is this just kind of dilapidated tennis grounds, and I was sitting there under this tree, and I remember the cicadas were doing its hum and fall, like, and it was in the dappled sunlight coming through the trees were just making kind of rainbow, like just the light on my face. And I remember the sounds and the sensations, and all of a sudden it was like I felt like everything just opened up and God came to me, and just there was this light that it's hard to explain. It was like an invitation into my heart, my soul, like, and God, the creator, just said, would you like to follow me? Like, this is the light, like, would you come to? And I said yes in my heart. I was like, this is yes. And then it just went away. And this was a very, I mean, I wouldn't be able to articulate what happened to me as a kid. It was a flash, an instant, but my heart, there was something that happened in my heart. And at that, I started to, I was like, well, should I be a monk? Should I be a guru? And then I started, I would practice meditation as a kid out in the playground to hopefully people would look at me and like, oh wow, he's so spiritual, So I would,
Wait, you
so
were like 8?
I was in elementary, 8, 9, 10, like 9, and I was, you know,
I love that.
it was definitely childish egoism mixed with genuine spirituality
No,
of
no, it's like
hunger.
I that so you just describing that right there. I had so many encounters like that as a
Wow.
child because I mean, I spent so much time outside. We spent so much time in the woods, I mean, I actually so one similar thing to me or for me was I would lay and we had a really decent sized backyard growing up and we had a lot of trees around. There was like a lot next door that had a lot of trees. And there were these certain areas of our backyard that had this beautiful moss, even though I'm
Mm.
such a hippie. Like it's just
I
these
love moss.
patches. I know.
So
It's
beautiful.
like patches of moss and
Wow.
I would lay there and I would look up and it was like, the same thing, like the light would kind of come through the trees in a certain way and you could
Yeah,
feel that light. I
that's right.
completely understand what you're saying. And I think it's just that innate connection that we have with children. I think you're right. Before anything is corrupted, it's like,
Yeah,
or there's trauma or whatever. And that was my favorite spot. Like I can go back to that memory and just like wish for that moment,
yeah.
that connection. So yeah, I
Yeah.
totally get that. But I love that you were just trying to you're like, all right, how can I turn into a guru?
Yeah, it's sweet.
Yeah.
The Japanese have a word. They have a lot of cool words, but one of them is kumarabi. Kumarabi, excuse me. And it means the feeling or the atmosphere that's created when there's sunlight that comes through the leaves above you, like that, where they illuminate. That
Yeah.
beautiful. That's a cool word. One of
And
my
they have a
albums.
word for that.
They
I
have a
love
word for
that.
that. Amazing. It's so
That's
beautiful.
amazing.
One of my albums is the first album is called "Love Songs to the Kumarabi Architect." So it's
Oh
like
yeah.
this.
I think I heard that. I spent
Yeah.
a good amount of time listening to your stuff and it's
Wow.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a Psalm 19, Psalm 19 in the Bible that it says that that, uh, all creation, basically the creation speaks a secret language that's proclaiming the glory of God everywhere you go. Like with the sunsets and the clouds and everything that's created, it's constantly just like not preaching, but just like proclaiming this secret language. And it's like you and me both, and so many others, when it touches the heart, I mean, it's just when you're seeing a sunset, it's a language. It's a love letter to the soul. Like, come, there's a
There's an
higher place.
invitation there.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
that's
I love
beautiful.
that.
Uh,
It's so good. And we're so out of touch with that. Every time I think about that and I spend time getting connected,
mm,
then I notice that there's usually like a week of like distraction and whatever that I have to deal with where I get like disconnected again. I feel like
yeah,
I have a really big problem with modernity and most
yeah,
of my audience does too.
yeah. What is modernity? What is that?
So just like, like being in our modern times, like where we
Oh,
are, we're so
modernity.
yeah,
Okay, that
yeah.
I was like, is that a pharmaceutical drug? No,
No, no, not
modernity. Yeah,
Moderna.
yeah, modernity. I was like, what is that?
All
I
right.
feel you, sister. I feel you.
We have different accents. Sorry about that. It's the Baltimore accent coming through. You probably have no idea what I'm talking about.
No, but yeah, the
Yeah.
modern what is it? It's like nihilism kind of. It's this strange it's out of the heart and into the head.
Yeah.
It's like brain worship.
It
You
is.
know?
It's crazy. Yeah. So, but I love that, man. You just painted such a beautiful, that's what a great moment in childhood.
Mm.
So where does that take you? So you kind of invited that, you probably didn't know it was Jesus or, an
No.
invitation from the creator. So,
Well,
did you go home and talk to your parents and be like,
no, but just to correct, I did know it was the creator. I believed in the creator, but
hmm,
it was definitely kind of a pantheistic
sure.
worldview where just everything and all things. But definitely, yeah, I always believed in a creator, um, and but it wasn't attached to like Jesus or the Bible or anything. It was very open ended, and but I didn't, the only thing I ever talked to my parents about after that was I remember driving once, and it was kind of an awkward moment, but I asked my mom, I was like, what is God?
Mm,
And she said, because she didn't, she got pretty burnt with religion, I think, as a youngster, and kind of a lack of love in the home, but real strict, like a lot of people have this kind of dead religion, professing religion, but it's not true of the heart. A joyless home. That's crazy. A Christian home that's joyless. That's like,
yeah.
what? An oxymoron. Is that the right word? But
Yeah. No, a lot
anyway,
of people experience that for sure. Yeah.
yeah. So she rejected that, but she said God. She just said God is love. Like it just kind of like what he'd tell this little child, and I just love her for that. And it was it was it was truth. Not not the fullness, but it was good and it was true. And she, I think I asked her about the Bible at one point in my life when I was young, because I was curious. Um, and she said, "Oh, it's kind of a boring history book." So I was like, "Nah, I don't want boring history books." So it didn't attract me.
Right.
But so anyway, yeah, I kind of I did have grow in that time period. I started to definitely be focused on the spiritual life. That was going to be that's the direction I was going. And then um, I got involved in drugs at a pretty young age. There was the joint in the alley, behind the houses of smoke, and it just kind of it just the whole hitting puberty, finding the stacks of pornography and
Yeah.
all the adults secret life stuff that was so intriguing as a kid. And so I quickly started to lose innocence. um and I would say, just like I was visited by the true God, the creator God, the love of love and light, I began to have visitations by a darker presence, I would say.
Mm,
And it wasn't, I wouldn't say an oppressive presence. It was more of uh, this strong desire and pull towards the like darker occult magic. um I remember,
around what age was that?
I would say probably 11,
Mm,
12, so like seventh grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, more seventh. And
yeah.
um yeah, I remember going to the library, and there was these stacks of book called Man, Myth, and Magic, and I would
Yeah.
just bring them home, and it was like I'd found my home, my tribe or something, some mystery. There was like this I started to become obsessed really with why we exist and what is this reality. I mean, I was just, of course, and then there's the taking acid and all that stuff. But so yeah, at a very young age, I was drawn to this stuff. And I do believe it was first born out of just a desire to know God, and because I had this love for love and God, and I wanted love and light and truth,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Culturally, like at that time, was that kind of, because I can think of my own personal experience very similar, like going to the library, looking into the mysteries. Like I loved the occult section. I loved all that. The idea of I don't know. I mean, we're like the unsolved mystery generation. So I love the idea of like, solving a mystery and like what's out there and doing something different that like my parents didn't talk about. They didn't talk about ghosts and weird stuff and demons. And, so I was really drawn to that too. But was there like, when you were in school and like middle school, was there kind of like a culture of that? Like, were you kind of hanging out with those kids, or were you kind of just like, I want to check this out on my own?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I quickly I'm a ninth grade dropout. Um, I ran away from home about 15.
Hmm.
My dad, God bless him. I love him so much. He's passed on now, but he really was unable to father. So because he was very wounded as a child and very neglected, I believe, and so there was a real absence of that. That would say that was the main thing that allowed a lot of the darkness to come in, I believe, because
The big
there's
father wound. Yeah,
yeah, and
for sure.
a lack of his spiritual protection over the
Hmm.
home and over his children, and also just him giving destiny, and saying, "Son, this is who you are," walk
Yeah.
in this,
Mm.
So that was completely not there. So I don't know. I was more, I got my companions were the druggies,
Yeah.
uh, and and the weird kids, and
Mine
so
too. You're in good company.
so
Yeah.
my friends, it wasn't like we were like, wow, I wonder what God is, but we were like, we would trip out and talk about the weirdest things we could possibly come up with, and talk about the universe and
Yeah. Why are
weird,
we here?
yeah, like what, aliens, and like,
Yes.
talk a lot, about girls and sex and drugs and the universe and blah blah,
Right.
like kids do. Um, and, but very strange. We were some weirdos. Take we started taking a lot of LSD and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but your question originally was, how did I get into psychedelic music? So I
Yeah.
was, before LSD, I was into Slayer, Black Flag, Suicidal Tendencies. I like the old punk, like
I
especially
love Henry
Black Flag.
Rollins.
You know,
I just love
if you're
him.
gonna pick punk, Black Flag is
Black
your
Flag is it.
choice. It's the
Yeah.
raw
Oh,
drinking
here's a
black
smoker.
coffee.
Yeah. Oh man. Henry Rollins is just
And of
something
course
else.
the Misfits, the Misfits and all
Oh
that stuff.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Everybody in my high school had greasy Doyle hair, which was
yeah,
just like, the greasy.
yeah, yeah. It's funny, like, because you when you like the darkness. There's a definite spiritual war in the world,
Mhm.
and the Bible talks about that the person the unbeliever, the one hasn't been illuminated by Christ and the Holy Spirit, has blinders on their eyes and they can't see it. And it's amazing. It was amazing to me coming out of that. But like the lyrics, I remember chanting, Slayer, like "Hail Satan, Hail Satan," and I didn't believe in Satan. Like, Satan doesn't exist. It's just like theater.
Yeah.
It's wordplay. It's like power. It's edgy. It's to like it's made to shock the normies.
Right.
But
It's
Satan
shocking and
doesn't
angry,
real.
and that's
Yeah,
how I
yeah,
feel inside. Yeah,
that's right.
I totally get that. And
Yeah.
that's crazy that you say that because I just the other day, like, kind of had like not really a conviction, but I heard somebody talking about this, and I was like, wow, I should probably go around and do this. But like, um, kind of like, I guess not so much renouncing, but like repenting for the lyrics that you have sung
Yep.
because just like you, I mean, I was into a lot of, I mean, outside of Slayer, Slayer, I don't know. I don't even really know if they were really that convicted, about being satanic, but I listened to a ton of satanic Norwegian black metal that
Wow.
was completely 100%. And I'm like, singing along to this stuff in a different language, and I have no idea. I mean, now I know, because
Yeah.
even then, looking into it, it was just like, oh yeah, these guys are totally satanic. And,
Yeah.
it's crazy. But I just kind of thought, like, it's crazy that we're talking about this now, because I just had that revelation or whatever, like, the other day. Like, yeah, I should probably, like, say sorry about that, because I spoke those lyrics, not only out loud all the time when I was singing them, but then I would, like, share it with other people, and, like, go to gatherings where we're all chanting the same thing, so it kind of gets, you don't realize it, but music really has that
Yeah.
connection with the
Yeah.
spiritual, whether you realize it or not. Kind of getting back to, what you're saying about, like, people having blinders on, for sure. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's very powerful. I
It
mean,
is.
it's definitely it's a worship in all forms. I mean, music was created for worship, and it is a worship. Um, and it's people who don't understand, they would mock Christians and like, oh, you think the devil is just like this scary forked, you
Mm-hmm.
know, creature of mythology or something, and you're scared of just having a good time. But it's the lyrics of these things are very hyper intelligent. It's not like stupidity. It's like the enemy, the devils are hyper intelligent. They're not. It's not like they and when they write lyrics, it's going to change your mind towards the character of God, and it's done in a way that's very tricky and very I mean, like one of the one tactic, it's kind of like he says love doesn't really exist, it's chemicals in your brain, right? I mean, that's just one
Oh
example
yeah.
of demonic knowledge that's not true. To have truths, weird truths, it has no spirituality, it lacks heart, but it does great damage to someone's soul, because they start to believe the incredible lives that bring death to them, their mind and self. So, yeah, it's good to renounce those lyrics.
Well,
um
even that pattern of thinking too,
yeah.
because, whether you're repeating lyrics or you're repeating mantra, or, you're kind of, the things that we let ourselves, like, tell ourselves,
Hmm.
that creates neural pathways in our brain,
Yeah.
whether it's a good, positive thought, a negative thought. It's that pattern is there, and it's hard to undo that. It takes a lot of time to undo that sort of, you know, that thinking,
Yeah.
whether it's, I mean, especially if it's bad, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a lifelong lifelong battle. For me, I know the enemy. I know exactly how he hits me, and it's
Mhm.
always in the mind, and of course, and it's always against the character of God. Uh, and when you start believing those lies, your whole life is affected. How you treat everyone around you, your moods, how you view everything. It's incredibly powerful. So God, we have to be really vigilant, and have each other's help, especially our
Oh,
spouses.
absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always, I never am resistant to just being like, honey, can you pray with me? I'm sinking in a black hole here in my mind, and can we just pray? And praise God, it lifts. It always, God is good, and we
That's
just battle
awesome.
through it. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
It
music,
kind of,
music.
oh man, that just reminded me of, like, if you're familiar with the Snow Queen, but, like, that, the Snow Queen is such a great story by Hans Christian Andersen.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's like, like,
the
yeah,
mirrors
the
break
mirrors
apart.
and oh my
Okay,
gosh.
my
Every
wife
time
was
I
just
think
telling me
about
about
that,
this.
isn't that so crazy? Every time I think about that scripture of, the scales on our eyes, like, I think
Mm,
sometimes it's hard for us to process, like, what do you mean? I don't have any physical scales, but it's almost like a lens. Like, I mean, that could probably be, I have done no research on this, but I mean, that could be a way of thinking about it,
yeah.
is that mirror from that story. I love that, because what happens is the little boy, like, I think it's demons actually, like, break a mirror, and they scatter it all over the earth from, like, up above, and it comes down and it pierces this little boy's eye, and then his entire worldview changes. Like he looks at flowers that he once loved as ugly.
Oh,
He has like a little neighbor who he used to love, and he like doesn't like her anymore. So I think it just kind of touches on worldview and the way that we perceive things and how we are so easily deceived sometimes.
amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my like voyages into really dark magic, chaos
Mm,
magic, all that stuff, what I found is the most powerful black magic, and it's a real black magic is like the 5 o'clock news, like
mm,
the thing. There's this 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 void that it's a magic that sucks the beauty and the mystical reality out of creation and life and the mind, and you're left with this materialistic dead gray kind of thinking, and it's amazing. Yeah, just like you said, the flower was once beautiful when I was a child, but now it's just it's a landscaping thing, you
yeah.
know. Yeah.
How did you find yourself there? In that, and what I'm not familiar with chaos magic in my dabbling.
Oh,
So
yeah,
yeah, I
chaos
don't know
magic.
if you want to get into that or
Yeah, for sure,
um
we can go there. It's interesting. Let's see. So we're talking about music. Yes. Let me just back up before we go into
yeah.
chaos magic.
Before we get into
Um,
chaos magic.
um, so let's see. Um, so yeah, I was into metal and punk rock and all that stuff. And Bauhaus and all that gothic stuff. And um, Bela Lugosi's dead.
I
And all this
know.
stuff.
Ugh, but that's I still
Yeah.
listen to that stuff. It
It,
doesn't
it,
I
it's
don't feel led not to. So
yeah. It's when I'm being hit with that dark kind of sinking feeling, I'm like, well, Bela Lugosi's dead would be good now.
yeah.
But so
You
I
want to
avoid
sink back into it,
it.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
I do avoid it.
for
But
sure.
anyway, so I on my first acid trip, this so we can get really weird and deep here. So okay, there's an underground couple of underground films that are awful called by this man called Joe Christ. This was back in the 80s and 90s and stuff, but he made these films like Speed Freaks with Guns and Room 51 or something. But basically it was this this Room, I think 51, I forget the name. It was just him, and they were like on ecstasy, and they were this one woman was cutting her wrists open, and they did like
Ew.
this communion, like
Yeah.
with the bread and her blood. I mean, that kind of movie,
That
right?
kind of yeah, darkness, yeah.
Yeah, they were just it's this weird, but that lady, her name's Mary. I don't have no idea, what became of her. But she was a friend, kind of a friend of mine, that because
Oh,
I didn't know all this. I found this stuff as I met, because I had a friend, and he's since deceased now. He died fairly recently, but uh, he became my best friend in seventh grade. His name was Chris, and we became. He was a weird guy, and I ran away from home and lived with him and his mom, and they let's see he knew these people, so there was all these people in my life. But so we're driving, we're going, and it's a party somewhere. I didn't know. I was a kid. I was like 15 and
mm,
or 14 at the time. And Mary, the lady who was in those movies, she was such a weird goth black, had all these horrible scars and stuff. And but
ugh. Yeah.
she was into that, and but she gave me this little piece of paper, my friend and I, and she was like, here, take these. And she gave us two of these tabs of acid. And I was like, what is this? And I didn't taste anything. And I was like, didn't expect much out of it. But then she takes us, we all go to a Star Trek or a D&D and Star Trek convention at a hotel. And,
Oh,
so
wow.
that was my first acid trip, was at those places. And So we just laughed for like 8 hours, and it was great, and it was hilarious. And but the second acid trip, I was at a party. I was tripping really hard, and my friend came up to me, Chris, the friend I was talking about, and he put
Mm-hmm.
these headphones on, and he put headphones on me, and he's like, listen to this, and he just pushed play on this cassette Walkman, and it was Me Beat Manifesto, the song called Hello Teenage America.
Yeah. Oh
Very
man, I know that
psychedelic,
band.
very
Mm-hmm.
psychedelic, and it was like a whole new world just
Yeah.
opened up. Like I was like this, like it was like finding some like haunted lamp that talked to you, or something.
Yeah.
So after that
Yeah.
point, I just gave myself. I was like, I want to know more. I want to hear more of this kind of music. And so that began the psychedelic journey of music. And it was kind of a
Yeah.
really a search for God in a way. And so it
No,
was,
I mean, that's it. Like, I mean, I had my club days for sure. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if you did spent much time at raves, but I mean,
yeah,
I definitely
definitely,
like hit up a couple when I was in, I don't even know, maybe high school. So I
yeah,
didn't get super into the psychedelics, but I definitely was into that scene for sure. And I love dancing. Like, I absolutely love dancing to that music.
yeah,
And there's actually one, and I would take people with me and like make people go and just like, come on, let's go to like, just, I want to just, it's because it's escapism, right?
yeah,
Like, it's just totally, and it's not just that, but I mean, I don't know if we could get into this because I don't know a lot about it, but it's definitely frequency. It definitely changes your brain chemistry. I
wow,
mean, it's very, very chemical.
yeah,
Um, for sure. But for me, I mean, there's even like songs that I would dance to. There's one, I can't remember who sings it, but the whole point of it was like, it's all trance, like house music. So
wow,
then you get like the ups and the downs. And like, I mean, I love kind of music. That's why I actually really enjoy what you're producing now because I can experience that without feeling like there's some sort of weirdo alchemical thing
yeah,
happening to my brain. Like, but
yeah.
people get into frequencies and like the way that things are tuned now, that's a big topic of conversation. I don't know if you know anything about that, but
Oh, sure,
it
yeah.
definitely messes with
432
our,
and
yeah,
very interesting stuff.
it messes with us.
Yeah,
So, but I love that. There was a song that was like the whole hook was this is my church. This is where I heal my hurts. And it's on the dance floor. And it's just like, and it's really crazy. I just want to say this. My son was singing a song the other day and I was like, I'm not going to sing it. But when he was singing it, I could hear this like tone and I
mm,
know what the song is like in like really.
yeah,
And I looked up the singer, but it just had this tone and it made me feel like sick
mm,
when I heard him singing it.
wow,
And when I looked up the lyrics, I was like, yeah, I know all about her and I know what she's about. And she's super anti God. And I don't want you singing the song.
wow,
And so I read the lyrics out loud to my husband and
yeah,
he's just like, oh, whatever. And I was like, no, seriously, like this, I know culturally this girl is like super into weird stuff. So
yeah,
I had to explain to my son, like, look, dude, you got to watch. You're going to, at some point you have to start realizing,
yeah,
the stuff that's produced out there, not all of it is the best for us,
yeah,
because what
absolutely,
she was singing sounded like a spell to me.
absolutely,
And
yeah,
the way that he was singing it, like, I was like, oh, wow. Okay.
mm,
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to get us off topic, but that like just
wow,
happened. And I was like, man, that's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
music's so powerful.
It is.
I mean, that what Hollywood and all this, these these people are producing is really wicked, and it's hard. I mean, the kids, like, yeah, kid, it's hard to watch your children be kind of lured into when you can see it clearly. It's
Mm-hmm.
heartbreaking. It really is. Yeah, it's very difficult. And again, it's funny, like you can't see it until you
Mm-mm.
do, once
You're
you
on the
see it,
other side of it, right?
it's like,
Yeah,
whoa, what is happening to me?
exactly. So
I
I
mean,
want to go, I want to kind of go back though. So, cause I don't know, you just took me back to my club days, but like,
yeah,
so you're, you're in this like first of all, I love that I don't love that you had experienced that, but I love that they took you to a Dungeons and Dragons convention. That just sounds super nerdy to
Oh,
me.
it was
Sorry,
so
guys
funny.
out there. I know I have D&D fans.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't have a look. I don't. Some Christians are like it's demonic, and I'm like, dude, it's whatever. I think it's fine. Like unless God specifically tells me that I'm not supposed to do this, like I have no skin
Sure.
in that game with D&D. But
Sure.
I just think it's really funny because to me that just sounds like the nerdiest place to drop.
Oh, it
I'm
it
sorry.
was it was a very nerdy place, and
Yeah.
the real memory I have is me and my friend who we were both dosed at the same time, and it was our first time. He we're both we cannot stop hysterically laughing, like
Right.
belly aching laughing,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I remember we were going down this hallway, and it's it's like a DoubleTree or some hotel where all the corridors, it's definitely like a mirror, right? Because there's doors, so it's already psychedelic in a weird
Oh
surreal
jeez.
way. It's like some weird David Lynch movie, and
Yeah.
we're just like creeping along like some crazy fools, and around the corner comes a guy dressed as Worf, with the makeup,
Oh my
and
gosh.
he looks at us and kind of hesitates. He's like, he looks at, and we look like fiends, we're just like,
Right. Oh
"Ah!"
my god.
and he stops. He's
Oh.
like, and then he keeps walking, and so there's this like eternity of, and we're like, okay,
Right.
be quiet, don't laugh, don't laugh,
Be cool.
don't, be cool, man.
Be
And
cool.
so it was just so awkward. You could just squeeze the awkwardness. It was juicy, and
That
then
guy was
we
probably like, what is wrong with these kids?
we're like we're like
Gosh.
climbing, and so he right when he passes, we burst out laughing again. So it was funny. That was the only acid trip where I laughed. Then it just got weird after. It was the first one's free, and then everything gets really weird.
Yeah. So did you ever like encounter that person again, Mary? Were you
Mm.
like hanging out with her after that? Like,
Yeah, a little bit. She was a girlfriend of a friend named Randy who we hung out more at his house. She would come hang out every now and then. This was only, I knew Randy we hung out on occasion and for like a year or so.
hmm,
So it was not a long-term relationship.
gotcha.
I never talked to her about those weird, like her scars and stuff. I always wondered I found out later what those scars were about.
Hmm,
Um, and she was really nice. She was really cool. It grieves me that she was a part of that, of course. And I don't know whatever happened to her, but I hope she had
yeah,
found the light. Um,
definitely.
but they were very
Yeah.
weird. I mean, the music that they introduced me to was very strange. A lot of psychic TV,
Hmm,
pig face, throbbing gristle, all the really weird shock art kind of stuff. The
yeah.
swans.
So
So
on the other like not I guess not non-psychedelic, but like on the other end of that, at least for me, is like all the industrial. Like
oh
that's
yeah,
kind of
industrial.
where industrial sort of for me was a big thing too.
Yeah.
Like Skinny Puppy and
Oh
like
yeah.
yeah, like just but it's funny because it's all electronic music.
Yeah.
If you really think about like
It's
the way
true.
that it's all created and produced, it's all this like incredibly technical and can be very beautiful, but it's like the
Yeah.
attention. Like I cannot listen to industrial anymore. I actually was listening to
Yeah.
a Christian podcast the other day, and they were talking about Nine Inch Nails, and I was like,
Oh no.
I
No
can't.
way.
There's no way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy because I that was like I cut my teeth on that. Like I
Totally.
loved industrial,
Yeah.
just any sort of dark music. And I have friends that are probably listening to this and they're like, "Oh my gosh, seriously? Like we went and saw Nine Inch Nails, like
Yeah.
you know, and saw Marilyn Manson, and like that was
Yep.
just such a part of who I was. But now it's like I
Yep.
can't.
No
It's not
way.
because I'm not
It's,
allowed. It's because it
yeah.
physically makes me sick because
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
am filled with a different spirit,
Yeah.
and I can sniff that stuff out. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you really see what evil is, and have a
Yeah.
personal encounter with it, and once you realize that it's a there are actual entities behind it, and you think of the horrors that happen to children with, like, mind control abuse,
Yeah.
sexual abuse. The same spirit that's behind that stuff is behind the music. So, that it's just in a different form,
It's
um,
incredible that stuff's coming. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
and
Yes.
that's why I just, like, I can't stand it. And I grieve for those who make it. It's just like, if you only knew what you were doing, you would fall on your knees in tears.
Yeah.
And a lot of people won't understand what when I say that, but man, once you touch evil, and you see its actual face, it's pretty awful. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Ugh.
You see, so yeah, we got
It gets so dark so quick. It really
it
does.
does.
If you once you kind of, I mean not to be like a cliche with a, I don't know, but the onion whole thing with, once you peel back layers,
Yeah,
it just, and it's not even, the music industry is so surface to what we know, and that's Hollywood, that's all of that, like that stuff's being exposed, thank God, and I think people are waking up to that. But the unfortunate thing is, it's like once you start peeling that back, those layers, you can't unsee
that's true.
and unknow that stuff,
Yeah,
you know. And then if you I mean, I personally can't, and then go and just be like, oh yeah, it's just, you know, whatever music. Like,
yeah,
no, it's not. It actually does more.
yeah,
Ugh,
yep.
yeah. And I mean, you
'Cause-
that's pretty much your whole testimony, because then I think it just started getting kind of weirder for you from there, right? Because you
yeah,
said
yeah.
you're 15, you ran away.
So yeah, let's see. I'll kind of, because it's a pretty long story, so
Yeah.
I'll go up to I got arrested for LSD possession on Halloween night, when I was 15, and ended up going being I had to go to a day rehab place called Daytop, which is kind of a 90s scream therapy kind
Oh,
of
jeez.
place.
Like scared straight.
Not so intense.
Okay.
It was pretty good until, so it was kind of silly, but I was just biding my time. I thought, man, you're all stupid. And I won't even go into those stories. There's a lot of funny
Sure.
stories, but I got out of on probation. I got off probation at 17, and I was free to go. So I left, and then I moved to this hippie house, big 3-story hippie house, and then um, was becoming it was basically an adult at that point, and went to the rainbow gathering for the first time. So I was kind of like I was a hippie weirded kid. So I
Hmm.
liked hippie stuff, but I also liked the weird stuff music. So, and all my friends, I had a big uh group of hippie friends and weird friends, and we were really tight. And I started experimenting with drumming, because a lot of my hippie friends loved to drum, like drum circles. Um, we loved Bob Marley too, and I love Bob Marley still. He's great.
Yeah, me too.
Uh, um, and but so drumming, I started to practice. I started experimenting with magic, in the sense of altering the atmospheres at parties, like acid parties and different stuff like
Hmm.
that. So to me, I was how to catch up with this. It was like, in my worldview, um, the 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 evil in the world was the corporate machine, the government, they were killing the forests, and killing the land, and polluting the air, and causing wars, and the greed, and the manufacturing, and all this stuff that was killing the earth. And so it was the enemy was them, and we were good. That was
Hmm.
kind of the mindset. And I really believed that the way to fight the evil in the world, because I saw, I did see this when I watched television. It seemed evil and like weird, like it was like I said, like a black magic that was um altering the atmosphere in a
Hmm.
negative way. It was like it was sucking the mystery and the beauty out of life. And so I was like, okay, there's something spiritually, there's something evil, not spiritually, but there's something evil going on. I didn't know what, but I thought that the use of magic um, to break open a magical reality was the way to fight it, kind of, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense to me. Yes.
And
Hmm.
all along, I started becoming more and more into this, and I began to try to manipulate the reality, the atmosphere around me, using drum rhythms and kind of swirling, and because a lot of the psychedelic trancey stuff is very hypnotic
Hmm.
and kind of kaleidoscoping and that kind of thing, and I just started experimenting with this, and then I started being really drawn to kind of like a voodoo types of magic, voodoo, and voodoo's kind of it's very makeshift, it's very
Hmm.
intuitive like root magic, and so there's nothing very. I didn't read a book on like this is how you do a spell. It was all
Right.
very intuitive, and it just started to kind of go darker and darker from there, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
I I ended up leaving Dallas and hitchhiking on the road. I did go to the Rainbow Gathering once, and that was, a very cool experience at the time. And I met this girl. I was 18 and she was like 16 and a half or something. Um, I was just turned 18 anyway, but she was homeless. She was a hippie homeless
Yeah.
traveler. And we met in New Mexico. And I met her at this kind of hippie encampment. There was people playing bongos and smoking weed and the fire around a fire and stuff. And I was just smitten. Like it was just like at first sight, I was like, oh, this is the most beautiful, amazing uh, woman I've ever met, and we just clicked right away, and we became a couple instantly. But she was into very strange kind of darker magic than I was. Like she just had more power spiritually into the weird dark stuff.
Yeah.
And so it really started getting darker and darker at that point. I left. I didn't have my friend group back in Dallas that was kind of an anchoring to me. And so I was all alone with her, and just we were out there traveling, and it started to get weirder and weirder at this point. Um, we ended up traveling. We went back to Portland, Oregon,
Okay.
and because her mom lived there, um, and we lived at this crash pad, this kind of party house, and that's when things started really going south. I met this man there, and he was to describe this guy. He was real pale. He had curly red hair, like a fro, and he wore like dirty gray coveralls. He looked kind of like a serial killer.
Yeah. I just kind of was. That's where my
um,
entire brain went.
um,
It's like this does not sound like the best idea. I
oh
don't
man.
know where he's gonna take you. Like,
So,
oh my god.
and
Yeah.
at this point, I was like, had really was giving myself over to the universe, like
Yes.
in magic. How to explain it? We were getting into Carlos Castaneda books, and Carlos Castaneda magic is kind of loosely based on this Mexican sorcery, but it's very much, you say, dream magic, very much
Okay.
to enter into the realms of this types of magic really requires a loss of attachment to the normal routine of reality in a sense, um like because you're basically you're trying to dissolve the the veil between the dream world and this world, so everything, you know the attachments to, oh, what time is it, I gotta get to work, of that kind of
Right.
thing, really, it's easier to you have to since we were homeless and completely devoid of time, it was easier to go in these places. So no responsibilities, of course. And so, and of course, taking drugs helps.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
so me and this young woman who I just loved and stuff, but we were becoming, we were like spiritual jesters where
Mm-hmm.
we would we would play off each other magically, and at parties we would like change the atmosphere with just the things we were doing. It's hard to explain it, but um and and then this man came into my life, and he was right away. I just realized this guy was really powerful, like spiritually he had this powerful presence about him, and he would take us to like, we were messing with people, but then he would mess with us, and but
Mm-hmm.
take us, he was powerfully, like, had this dark power that he wielded. And I mean, we would go into trips and stuff, and he would, stop talking and then just start talking in it and telepathically, and just to
Oh
mess with
wow.
us. And like,
Yeah.
and and but and we started getting, and that's when I have to throw in here the introduction of this band called Crash Worship.
Mm-hmm.
Crash Worship, it was a very underground band at the time. Even in the 80s and 90s, they played at warehouses, and they would get kicked out of places. So, and Crash Worship is, it's, they had fire, and they had I mean, it was total chaos in their shows. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they they came and they would drum, and it
Yeah.
was strobe lights and very dark. And I mean, they would spray the crowd with LSD and Jello and blood,
Yeah.
and like, there would, some shows there would be like writhing orgies happening, and it was just like walking into hell. And there were
Right.
torches and fire everywhere. It was very intense. Um, I went to one of their shows, and but this guy was really into them, and so
Okay.
we were listening to Crash Worship a lot, and we started going. We would have acid parties at this house, and we would make makeshift torches. And oh, I failed to mention, this guy slept in the cellar. So he slept in this dark
Oh
cellar
man, you got
on
this
this
guy who's sleeping in the cellar.
this dirty mattress
This is
in
not.
the
This
cellar.
is like eyes wide shut or something. This is turning into sadness.
I
Oh my
was always
gosh.
like, bro, like, why are you sleeping down here? But
Why are you sleeping in the filth? I don't know. Because I'm a djinn, like a
cause
filth
see,
demon.
oh man,
No. So I don't know that band, but I understand that atmosphere because, like, if you, not every
oh,
level of goth club, but there is definitely
mm,
a level of that sort of experience too that we actually, my friend and I, almost got sucked into. So
mm,
it's
wow,
very, yeah.
yeah,
It's not the same. It's the same. I don't know how to explain it. It's like it's the same crap, but it's like packaged differently. You know what I
absolutely,
mean? Like
yeah,
it's just a different packaging.
yeah,
Like, okay, you were into like kind of, I mean, obviously we're into the homeless hippie life, but you were attracted to that more so at that time. I wanted to dress up like a Victorian goth and go to like weirdo Germany. Like, so
yeah,
that's, like it's all the same
yeah,
sort of stuff, but
yeah.
that sounds like super ritual to me.
Very
So,
ritual.
you've got this weird guy living in the basement. If you're listening to this crazy music.
Hmm. Yeah, very
Yeah.
ritualistic.
Yeah.
And just to say too, for the younger crowd, it's hard to grasp this, but the like nowadays you go to like a really dark show or
Hmm.
whatever, a concert that's like crazy but dark. Everybody has their phones out, right?
Hmm.
And so there's this sense of safety, and there's a sense of connection to the outside world. There's it's a totally different experience than when you and I were young. I mean, like,
Absolutely.
at
Yeah.
a Crash Worship show, we had no phones. Like when we're like back in the day, when you were on a road out in the middle of nowhere in the dark and there was a creepy car, like, it was scary. You had no phone. Like, you could have
Yeah.
been you could be killed, you could have been, I mean, murdered, and nobody would know. Like, it was a very different experience. So, and that's hard to understand for young
Well,
people.
especially traveling like that. I don't think even that. I mean, I probably might have had should have had you like kind of describe that. But I mean, it's and when I say train kids, these are kids that have left home for various reasons, and they either like kind of follow certain bands or kind of groups around, and you are hitchhiking throughout the country with nothing and panhandling. Like that's at least my knowledge of it because I've known so many kids that were in that lifestyle and unfortunately died in that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
is that kind of your experience? Like when you're saying you're traveling, you're hitchhiking with
Yeah,
nothing.
there was a couple of there was a couple of times where I had a feeling I was in a murder plot for sure. Uh and but thankfully I got out. I was never molested as a
Mm,
child or anything like that, but there, thankfully by God's
like
grace.
near misses. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely near misses. Weird parties are like where we're like something feels weird. Like people start
Mm,
to kind of talk like they're patronizing you and you're feeling okay, this is getting really creepy. But yeah, so so yeah, there's no phones to,
yeah,
if you're lucky you had a pager or something, but you had to get to a payphone, right? Or um so
yeah.
at a crash worship concert, they there was you were it was another world. I mean, and it turned to hell. You were in there. They had people who would like usually naked, they'd grab people from the outer edge who were kind of wallflowers and drag them into the front where everything crazy. So
Oh my gosh.
they
Yeah.
created a no hiding place atmosphere. That was it.
Mm,
It was very ritualistic. And during ritual, satanic ritual, you cannot, there's no hiding place. That's
yeah.
the core. You can't hide in your mind. You can't hide physically. You have to, it's like being in an initiation. Like you're all in or nothing, right?
Mm,
So yeah, so
that's crazy.
these shows were like that. And it was hard for me because it was intense. It was, I didn't know. I was like, I don't know, because I never, like, some of my friends were into like kind of pain stuff, and
Mm,
a lot of the piercing was really popular, and I was like, man,
yeah.
pierce your nipples, ouch,
Yeah.
but
That was probably
something,
around the time of like Jim Rose Circus and stuff, right?
uh, yeah, yeah, Fakir
Yeah.
Musafar was, I have a
Yeah.
whole story about
Oh my gosh.
that, but yeah, a lot of my friends were into the body piercing. And I was kind of like, you're crazy, man. Like, I don't, that doesn't get me off. I don't understand pain, that kind of thing. I just want to, like, I'm more of a pleasure seeker and that,
Yeah.
but anyway, so I was conflicted with the darkness, but here's the thing that my spirit guides, because I was like fully invested in the spirit realm, and the spirit guides were kept, it was like they were saying, you have to let go of your ego, your societal
Mm,
conditioning, and embrace the darkness to transcend to the next level. That was all. That was the MO.
mm,
They I was started believing that God, the creator God, was a jester that wore different masks, one good, one dark, one evil, and light. That, it's this pantheistic, like all things are God, all things are like teaching you, and there's a whole spectrum of experience, dark and light, all the spectrum is for experiencing. And they, especially with this man who lived in the basement, his teaching,
yeah.
I was became kind of his student unofficially, because I was very, at the time, I was very, what would you say, vulnerable, I would say.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Like, I mean, you've been at this point on the road
Yeah.
From a child, I mean, from a developmental, 15-year-old. I mean, that's, that's when not your personality, but I mean, your influences, you're so influential
Yeah.
at that time. So yeah, I think you're probably very pliable,
Yes.
moldable. Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. Yeah.
Being an intuitive, you kind of can be manipulated
Oh, sure.
as well. Not that he wasn't necessarily like manipulating me like a narcissist would, but he was just very a strong personality, and so I
Mm,
really submitted to that because I was desperate to know. I wanted to learn. I was obsessed with learning, like what is reality, what is existence. I was like, that was my whole focus. What is reality? What is this? I was ready because I wanted the next level.
right.
Because I was tired of the world as it is. I wanted to like I really wanted heaven and the kingdom of God.
Yeah, right.
So,
I know.
but so his teachings was like basically that good and evil are the same as left and right, and that it's all frequency, and that curse words are just vibrations. Everything is just a spectrum, and that
Mm,
there's no what is the idiom, do what thou wilt, like all things are
yes.
permissible, nothing is what was the
Harm none.
yeah,
Yeah.
there was the assassins, I forget their creed was like uh, all things are permissible, something.
Yeah.
But it was difficult. I mean, what was difficult was my conscience. Well, conscience was screaming like, no, don't do this, don't go here, don't partake in this. But the teachings of my spirit guides and this man, and what was happening was, no, you need to go against your conscience, because your conscience was created by society, what they said was right and wrong, and you have to go through that. And so that was where I was at. So it was definitely a wrestling match within myself. um and of course, the sexuality of the times, and in that scene, of course, is always pushing towards um, open relationships,
Mm,
free love, orgy type thing. So, and that was difficult going through, because um, my flesh wanted that, of course, but something I was, this woman, this young lady who I was obsessed with, I didn't want to, like, I was jealous, and it was so
yeah.
there was this whole thing going on in the scene.
It's very complex for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so I believe that the universe wanted me to embrace this evil.
Right.
And so I was doing that. And so we would just, let's go to the really dark stuff. Because
I just have a question really
yeah,
quick.
yeah,
Did
yeah.
you, I mean, so when you say like spirit guides, did you, when you, and you don't have to like, if you don't feel like comfortable talking about them or what you had experienced on that sort, because I'm assuming that you were in the astral if you were, you know, doing psychedelics, and would you say that that's like a fair, you were kind of dealing with like astral projection type thing, or like second heaven type sort of
No,
situations, or okay.
n- no, I did practice type of astral projection, which I,
Okay.
I can get into later. It's just I was becoming very dark in my soul, very dark, and
Okay.
I would, and this is one of the most shameful things. Um,
But you
of
don't have to share if you
It's
don't want
okay.
to. Yeah.
I share this because of the love of God, and just that God's love is so powerful. It's so unconditional that it will reach down and just save the wretched. I was a wretch, and now I see. It's like, and it's a testament to what the demons will do to a person. But we were getting into sex magic, and
Hmm.
there was the woman I was with. We would start to practice having a sexual experience with orgasm and everything, but without touching, where we would leave our bodies and trade bodies.
Yeah.
going back and forth and trading bodies and doing all that and being able to manipulate the everyone's energy and stuff. And that was weird. So then I started practicing, and this is shameful, but I was when people were sleeping in the crash place I was
Hmm.
in, I would meditate and astral project into them and their dreams and kind of like take advantage of them, almost rape
Yeah.
them in the dream. It's so horrible, so grievous. And they would wake up and go, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I would like have burning shame, and it was all like, and it was wicked. And it was the deception that we can do anything we want in our minds, and it's okay to have a secret little life
Yeah.
in the mind, which is it's a complete deception. Everything is open, everything is exposed. Jesus said, "What's whispered in the ear will be proclaimed on the rooftops." Like
Hmm.
there's no secrets, there's no hiding. If you are into evil things in your mind, it's exposed, and
Yeah.
it should be, because who wants that? God.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's I digress.
No, I'm so sorry that you experienced that. I really am.
Yeah,
Really
yeah,
am truly sorry.
it was a terrible thing. And so yeah, so as far as spirit guides, yeah,
Yeah.
I never I never mastered actually astral projection, where I would
Hmm.
really like, I was never like that. I tried to practice it, but I practice more of astral projection kind of in the waking state.
Hmm.
So, and it has had some interesting effects, like the dream stuff, dream
Yeah.
manipulation. And so when I say spirit guides, it wasn't like I saw an entity materialize with my physical eyes, but it was more of communicate, like when you're communicating, when your intention is to communicate with the spirit realm, and you're doing acts of intentional communication, and like opening up and like, please guide me, and through drums or chanting or that kind of thing, then these impressions, just I can't explain it. There's this presence is,
Yeah.
and this knowledge will come into your head, and
No,
that's what
that makes sense.
I
Yeah.
was experiencing it, I mean, very strongly for, it's like it's like if you it's like someone who goes to college for like biology, and that's their whole life, and they're studying, and they're like, their focus is that. Like, I had none of that. My focus was the spirit realm. Like,
Mm.
my whole life was the spirit realm, tapping into what is out there. And um and believing what you're experiencing, it's like,
Yeah.
yes, it's
That's such a
interesting.
good point because it's very experiential, isn't it?
Hmm.
You're out, you're inviting this experience, and that's tangible because it becomes tangible. It's kind of like, I would imagine some listeners could kind of relate to, if you've ever had a shadow person, if you've ever been kind of followed by an entity like that. It's probably the same thing.
Yeah.
I personally have had that, where it's not like a, you don't see it, it's more like an oppressive presence,
Hmm.
a spirit really that is kind of
Yeah.
attached to you. So you said it started getting like, you're kind of in this setting, and things start getting even more dark for you.
Yeah, when it really hit the fan, I guess you'd say, we would have these acid parties,
Hmm.
and me and this guy would initiate, the man who lived in the cellar. We'd initiate these rituals. We would make makeshift torches with sticks and rags and oil, and we'd go down into the cellar, which was a big, this it was a big cellar with a ceiling. It was high, but it was pitch dark in there. And we would take drums, congos, and djembes down there, um, and start having our own crash worship ritual kind of
Oh
in there.
wow, okay.
And what was a little different, where in my own exploration of drum magic, I was doing like kind of I was doing these kind of trancy kind of rhythms that I was trying to slow down and speed up time and kind of and that would create this really weird vibe and atmosphere, and that was all I took it to. And then the man who I'm talking about, he introduced this chaos magic where he would start to nonsensical just beat the drums without any rhythm, but it was very, very violent and very like forceful and kind of mocking, and so I understood where he was going intuitively, and so then we started doing this chaos drumming, and it was just, and it would play off each other. It's hard to describe this stuff. It sounds crazy.
Yeah. No, it
Um,
doesn't.
but it would open up a dimension. Like all of a
Sure.
sudden, it was like Hellraiser. It's the only way I'd describe it.
Oh.
It was like the real, like where we were at, like
Mm,
completely shifted, and
yeah.
we were like in the bowels of the earth in some other dimension, and everything changed. Like it was,
Yeah.
the veil broke, and I mean, I literally could hear chains. It was so
Wow.
violent, like the sounds that you heard were in the bones. I can't even explain it, but this,
No, that makes total sense. I
no,
mean,
he started
you
dancing.
absolutely shifted an atmosphere.
Um,
You broke something there.
oh,
Yes.
I have to add too, like all along this, I kept having these experiences on acid and stuff that where I started to, it started to seem like the Truman Show, where
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it felt like everybody was play acting and everybody was God. Everyone or everything I was in a virtual reality existence, and everything was God, and it was all for me. It was very
Yeah.
self-centered. Um, but it was kind of scary. I had some really scary experiences. When you have a group of friends around you start channeling the spirit realm or demons, and they start kind of mocking, and there's this synergy, and it can be very unnerving and terrifying. And you anyway, I was in this kind of mindset where I was like, I didn't know, are all these people God,
Yeah.
very intense. And then magic, when you go into these rituals, especially, um when it breaks open, the spirit realm breaks open, there's no, like, your psychic thoughts are completely bared to everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone can like read your thoughts, and then any kind of pull backpedaling you do, like if your conscious is like, this is too scary, I need to get out of here, like I need to not go here, they'll start mocking you. Like,
Oh my.
yeah,
So you can't retreat. There's no way of getting out of it.
yeah, it's, at the time, back to, when you're in ritual like that, um and things open up, and you're in, um a real hell dimension. um yeah, there's, your conscious is screaming, you're wanting to go back, and everyone, you become psychically connected, so
Mm.
everyone knows when someone is wanting to get out, and then there'll be mockery, and there's all this weird stuff that happens, so it's very intense, and it's hard to get out of that, for sure, because once you experience things that are like so scary and demonic, you would say, or strange. I mean, how can you go back to the real world? It's very
Yeah.
difficult, once you kind of see past the veil of what's happening. But you really, it's so yeah, it's very, very confusing. Um, this ritual. The man, he started to we were chant. There's a lot of chants and weird, backwards sounds that you make, and weird, you're using your voice to alter reality and do all this. It's kind of like a demonic tongues, I guess.
Mm.
Um, and this man started chanting Fook, 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 but then it morphed into Fuck, but it was
Mm-hmm.
like the teaching is like let go because all things are just vibration, and it was at that ritual the spirit guides, I could hear them like physically in my ears screaming like let go, and my conscience was screaming like don't do this. It was like killing a child, like
Oh my gosh.
sacrifice. That's what it
Yeah.
was intense, like my conscience was pleading with me not to go fully into this thing that was happening. And but the spirit guides, which I thought was God, was like let go, like it was, and they started being angry. It was just intense. Um and then, by the way, also before this, before it would break open, we would literally like get possessed by a spirit in our hand, like in our bodies, where the drums would start being taken over by something that wasn't us.
Mm.
And you literally you feel like a puppet, and it's not like being in the pocket like musicians talk about,
Yeah. Right.
it's not like being in the groove. It was literally like being puppeted by an entities that were directing the rhythm. And sometimes it would mock us. It would start making the bum 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 bum, and they were just like we could feel they're mocking us at the
Yeah.
time. They were just mocking us, and like you're stupid humans, we and we were. I was so you know naive,
Oh yeah.
desperate, vulnerable, that but I felt it was so dirty feeling to be possessed
Yes.
like that. And
And you
so
had no idea of your authority is exactly
oh
why
no.
they got away with it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I didn't
Right.
believe in the devil, I still didn't
Right.
believe in Satan. I
That's
believed
the amazing thing. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I believed that the spirit, like the spirit guides, were jesters. They were surreal. They were
Right.
they were they were jesting to get us out of our social programming and that kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
was, trusting these things. Oh God. But and so the drum possession would happen just before everything would break open, what I was talking about, like where it was like Hellraiser and stuff. So i- he starts chanting, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I decide to let go into this thing and push through my conscience. And he starts chanting. The chanting starts going into, he starts saying piss, piss, piss. And also I had this overwhelming feeling that I had to urinate, and I let go, and then I just fall over, like, and I urinate my pants, and I'm just like completely just, I go into this black void kind of thing. And that's when I know that a bunch of demons came in at that point.
Wow.
I so basically I was being pushed to be a host. And so and again, I didn't believe in demons, but they came in nonetheless. And so that ritual really got an infestation in me. And after that day, I was messed up. Like my whole insides were messed up. My digestive system was a wreck. I had to like make myself vomit sometimes to feel some relief. It was just
Oh
crazy.
my gosh.
I felt like it was like there was something seeing out of my eyes, like something else. I can't explain it. Like this dark scale, in a sense, like
Hmm.
and the joy that was in my eyes left. There was just like this torment inside. I felt like just infested. It's hard to explain it. It was it's a terrible feeling. And so fast forward, where should we go with this? That happened a few times. um,
The
in different ways.
ritual or the feeling of the
Yeah,
infestation?
the rituals happened
Mm.
a number of times. The parties would always go there, and um, ended up I ended up leaving that place. Here's an interesting because right, I was tormented. I remember one day, and this is where God was trying to get me. Um, I remember taking off. I was like, I had to get out of this house, and it was in the daytime, and there was some bicycles on the front lawn, and I just started riding, and it was almost like a prayer of "Please help me," kind of.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
and um, and I remember in Oregon, there's all these flowering trees that are kind of like apple trees, beautiful, and they were all flowering, and I was riding in this residential and feeling tormented, and I just was like, I want love, I want that purity. Once you go into darkness like that, everything that is of the light or normality looks like Leave It to Beaver on acid. Everything's just fake and phony and
Yeah.
fluorescent and staged and plastic, and
Another false light.
that's
Like,
right.
it's insane. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Your whole reality was
yeah,
completely inaccurate.
yeah. I
That's
mean,
just crazy.
there's a movie, William Burroughs, the beatnik author.
Hmm.
He's a really terrible guy,
Yeah.
pretty evil guy. He wrote a book called Naked Lunch, and they made the movie out
Yes.
of it. He
Yeah.
describes this exactly in that movie. I mean, that's what the movie's about. Going to the interzone. He
Mhm.
has to, he shoots his wife. He actually killed his wife in real life in Mexico at a
Yeah.
party. They were playing some game. He shot her, but in the movie, that was the pass to get into the interzone. So it's like it's killing your conscience to get the sacrifice to go. And in the movie, the main character is gone down the rabbit hole into the interzone, and it's in this kind of mucky city, New York, kind of greasy, slimy, weird place, and he sees off in the distance this bus of cheerleaders and football players getting into the tour bus to go, and they're all jolly, and he's just like, I can never go back
Oh,
to
yeah.
that reality, so that reality of the cheerleaders football game thing was like, and that's what I was exactly in that place. I was like, there's no way back. Um, but I
Mm.
was riding this bicycle, and I just I spoke the words, I love you, and I was talking to God,
Mhm.
and right when I said that, like I was showered, like this tree of flowers dropped all the flowers all of a sudden on me, and just I rode past this thing. It was like, and it was so intense. I stopped and braked, and there was no wind or anything, and I just felt God. He was like, I love you too. It was so,
Oh, I
it
love
was,
that.
it was a very beautiful moment. I was like, wow, that was so intense. And but as the day worn on, carried on, I started feeling the flesh again, and my addiction to drugs, alcohol, the addiction to it was like you're addicted to sin,
Yeah.
sinful things. And so I went back, got caught up again. So anyway, I leave. Well, finally hitchhike. I leave. Me and the woman aren't working out. Um, Mostly because I was unable to, be a real boyfriend,
Mhm.
and she was very disturbed, and she had a lot of trauma in her life, but um, ended up going to San Francisco. And I met up with my friend Chris, who I mentioned before, and he had become a really big LSD dealer on the West
Mhm.
Coast. So I joined with his crew for a time, and we were going to Dead shows, the Grateful Dead shows, and selling acid, and um, they would dip the sheets and the pages of acid in these motel rooms, and then we'd go. I was selling the single hits. Some people would sell sheets of acid, some people would sell pages. We were with a crew of about 4 or 5 people, and so this I mentioned this because a big pivoting point for me, and this is where the story kind of gets intense. Is I was at a dead show, and it was tripping, and I remember walking in the daytime. There was this Kinkeezy bus, which is like the painted buses, and
Yeah.
I'm an artist, and I was like, oh cool, let me go check this bus out, and I was walking around, and I got to the other side of the bus, and it was this giant Masonic pyramid eye,
Oh, what?
and
Oh, man.
something I was like,
Let me
huh,
go in there.
yeah, and I before that I started like learning about, okay, like some of the Christians said, like that, there's this antichrist and this one world government and evil system. I started seeing comics of that, and I totally, like, we were into, like, against the government, but it was more like the government were in bed with aliens or something, and I was like, huh, why is the government, because I consider Masonic stuff the government, why is the government, the evil, the enemy, in bed with the Grateful Dead? I was like, huh, that's so weird. It was very confusing. And then, hmm, pardon me, and that same night, so my friend comes up, and he's like, dares me to take all this acid, like a big piece of acid. And
Jeez.
so I did, and I'm trying to sell acid in this crowd, and it's at night. Um, I'm in this sea of people. It's kind of this thoroughfare, and starting. I'm slowly, my reality just is starting to just stop, and the acid's taking hold, and all of a sudden, it was like time, like a machine. It just stood still, came to a stop, and then I felt God speak to me, like the Creator God, and it was clear as crystal into my soul. It was like, if it was like a drop on a still pond, just rippled out into me. And he said, he said, you think you're against the New World Order, but you are a tool of it. You're a pawn of it. And he's like, you're killing your brothers and sisters with this witchcraft you're doing, and these drugs you're selling, and it was so convicting. It was like so convicting. And I remember it spoke that into my soul. I looked around, and I'm in this hell. There's police siren, like police lights. I remember looking around, and it was dark. There was police lights glistening off the chain link fences, and people had like started building, like burning plastic cup little bonfires. So there was like this black smoke, and then I look over, and I kid you not, you can't just, this stuff. I look over, and there's a policeman on horseback carrying a hippie by the hair who's butt naked, and
Oh
he's
my God.
dragging this man, and then I'm like, and then off in the distance there was a drum circle happening in a parking lot, and I remember seeing this spirit, like a hand over the crowd, just puppeting them. And I felt the spirit, like a sense of fear, like now that I could see it, it would see me, kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Oh my
I thought,
gosh.
are all these people gonna like just all at once look at me and start coming after me or something? But that was just, it was tripping out. And that was the moment that I considered. I remember thinking, is this what sin is?
Hmm.
Like, there's something, is it infused in all reality in this world? Is it like, what is it? What is this? Because now that it was the first time thinking, okay, this evil, this thing isn't just the government. It's in the thing that I thought was good, like the Grateful Dead, the movement, the hippie movement, all of a sudden now I'm seeing this evil, this intertwined in all of this stuff, right? And so it was really impactful. And I decided that I was done with all of it. I decided I was going to leave that morning. I was going to leave and go out to the mountains and find God,
Oh, wow.
find the
Yeah.
truth. I had that moment. So I got rid of all my acid. I cashed it in to my friends. I had like $300. At this point, I had dreadlocks, big nasty dreads. I was a hippie,
Yeah.
Nomadic hippie, and I did buy some mushrooms because it was natural, and I thought, all right, I'm gonna go out to the mountains, to the woods, and not come back until I found truth. I was so sick of it, like all of this torment, all these things that were happening in my life, and so I was at Eugene Hot Springs, or the Eugene, Oregon. There's all these hot springs. There was this one main place where you could get a ride from the free bus. And so, and before that, I did leave all my friends that morning, and I got a backpack. I got some camping supplies. I got a Swiss Army knife. I had the mushrooms. I went to a shop on the way and got all these candles, different colors candles, and some bells. And I was like, I'm out of here. And so I go up into the woods, way out in the woods near the hot springs, and I set up this camp, start a little fire. I brew the mushrooms. I didn't know what else to do to contact the spirit realm, but
Right.
through shamanistic methods, I guess. And I put out the candles in a circle around the fire. I've got all the colors of the rainbow, plus a white and a black. I'm still in the mindset. I didn't know what to do, but this was the first time I really called out to the universe, to God, the Creator, with a humble heart. So, before I was very prideful, very self-righteous, arrogant, in a sense, spiritually, thinking that I was, in a different class. It was almost like, it was kind of like the Lost Boys. Remember the Lost Boys were
Oh, yeah.
There was this arrogance, like we're part of the vampire club, like
right.
we were part of this alien, like weird counterculture that knows more than anybody, and it was very prideful.
Well, it's the knowledge, right? Like you have the knowledge. You have the knowledge, right. and you have access to it, right?
Yeah,
because that's what you're seeking.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gnosticism.
Gnosticism.
So I had all this horrible knowledge, and but I started chanting. I started like with a humble heart, please help me. So I felt tormented, and everything was dark. I didn't know what to do. I had no one. Had nothing. I was just wanting truth. And I'm chanting, and then all of a sudden, I feel this prickle on the back of my neck rise, like this presence, like an evil presence. And I start hearing this whisper, like physically hearing, not just in my mind, like physically hearing, like whisper, like, we're killing you. And,
oh my gosh.
And then I heard the voice of the woman that I was obsessed with, because she was into witchcraft, and she was laughing at me, and I started thinking maybe they're doing witchcraft close by to mess with me. But all these voices, these evil mocking voices started just mocking me, just like, you thought you were you thought you had power, but you're just a bag of shit.
Right.
You're just like, that was our power we gave you, because I would go to like the Krishna temples and get a free meal in San Francisco, but they would have these worship things going on, and like with drums, and I was manipulating with this magic and astral projection where I would like I would break the drum beats. It sounds so stupid, but I would it was able through this demonic spirits to manipulate these drums to actually bring him to a complete halt where they would just have to stop and then start over again. It was like really mischievous evil magic. I was practicing manipulation. So, and they were like, we you thought that was your power, this is ours, and we gave it to you. And they were just mocking. It was so evil. There's no evil like the voice of a demon. And then all of a sudden there was just the whole woods, because it was at night and there was a campfire, and there was the shadows on the trees, very, you know, horrific kind of scene that like the whole place just swarmed with demonic spirits, like, and they were just, it felt like they were like attacking me with arrows of just hate. And I started freaking out, of course. They started saying, we're poisoning you. We poisoned you with the mushrooms. We poisoned you with the mushrooms. And I was like, well, what can I do to get these out of me? So I put my finger down my throat to throw up the mushrooms. It was too late at this point, but and when I did that, it was like 5 voices just started screaming out of my voice, like low voices to high, just like The Exorcist, just like alien 5 voices just screaming, no. And it was not me. It wasn't my own rage. It wasn't my own. It was these entities like in my body, and my mind just flipped over backwards, because I didn't believe in demons, and all of a sudden now I believe in demons, but it's too late because they're in me and they're laughing at me, and they're and so it was very scary. I completely, like, it was a living nightmare. And I didn't know Christians could deal with demons. I didn't know they even like believed in demons, really. And then but I started having these funny memories during this. I remember like this old, remember Elvira?
Oh yeah, I used to watch that all the time. I don't know why I was allowed to watch that movie at all.
And as I'm like,
but it was the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, right. This funniest thought comes in my head, this kind of sad, ironic, like, thought that, because they were mocked, they were like, you did this, you're manipulate, you allowed us to come in, and you're such a, you know. And demons, they hate people. They see us as disgusting. They see us as flesh pods full of like excrement, and that's how they view us, as these kind of weird creatures that carry around poop and gross, and we're just disgusting, like. And they hate us, and they're super hyper intelligent and ancient, man. These and the voices of these things, the language that I was hearing was so ancient that it was making me tremble. Like, I can't, the fear was beyond any fear I can imagine. And it shook me. And but this thought came to my head of this memory of an Elvira movie that I had watched, where she was mocking Christianity and using like holy water and making like the cross and all this, and all of a sudden I believed in demons, and I was like, all this has been a farce. Like, they've been here all along. Like, these entities have been in society, and they're like aliens. I thought, well, there's some sort of spiritual alien or weird. And I still didn't know Jesus, mind you, but I knew that somehow all this mockery, I just, all the TV shows and the music started coming to my mind where they mocked Christianity. They mocked the idea of Satan. That was the theme. And I had allowed real demons into me. So I was freaking out. I thought they're going to put me in a mental ward. Like, where can I go? Like to, you know, and so I start freaking out. I'm like, start burning stuff. Like I had these hippie beads, these skull beads. Every time I would throw something in the fire, the voices, those demons would just rage and like tear me apart, and I would just scream, just no, and like, so I was like, man, I want to do more of what they don't like. So
Yeah, right.
I start burning my clothes. I burned all the money I had. Everything started going in the fire, and then I had like nasty dreadlocks, big clumpy gross dreadlocks, and they had beads in them. I started hacking my dreads off with this Swiss Army knife that I bought, and I was burning every time I'd throw a dread in the fire, they would just scream at me. And I remember running, like, I had, we talked about Ram Dass the other day,
Yeah.
and I had this one Ram Dass book. It's called Be Here Now.
Yep.
It was this famous hippie Hindu book. And I remember running to it like, okay, maybe I could, if I could go back to purity, innocence, like thoughts of love again or something. And I had it in my backpack, and I was pulling it out, trying to read it. And all of a sudden the fire, started spitting coals at me and burning me, and they were like laughing. I could hear laughter and mocking it. It was so crazy. um and again, I started cutting my dreads off. And then at one point they kind of, it was a weird thing because they all stopped. I mean, I could sense them, hear them. Like it was like, if anybody's ever seen the movie Odd Thomas. Odd Thomas is this really intense book, but the movie, how they made those demon entities in that movie is exactly what I was seeing. Like they were like these liquid fluid, like kind of Geigerish, like aliens. Anyway, terrifying.
Yeah. Ugh.
But so they backed off. I remember them. It was almost, I could hear them regrouping, and they would like talk to one another, and then they would talk to me, or they talk about me and look at me. And it was so freaky. And I was just like, okay, maybe I have a chance here. What do I got to do? What do I need to do to get out of this? I was started to panic. And what I believe now is they were trying to get me into a frenzy. I mean, it was all purposeful. They had exposed themselves for a purpose. They said, this is our power, not yours. They came for a purpose, and all of a sudden they attacked again. And it was so much fear on me that I thought the only thing to do is to get out of my body. I was like, I've got to get out of my body right now, or like this dimension of hell was going to swallow me alive. And of course that was a lie. But I believed it. I was like, I've got to get out of here. And it was very utilitarian. It wasn't like, I'm so depressed, I want to die. It was like, if you don't get out of your body, these things are going to devour your soul, which is not true. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I tried to cut my wrist. That wasn't happening. So I started hacking my neck.
Oh my gosh.
With this Swiss Army knife. And it was a small blade, but I was hacking as hard as I could hit my neck. My neck was like a tattered mess. Like I could stick my fingers into my my tendons and stuff. And so the scene is, I'm completely naked. My dreads are like half cut off. I have blood like dripping down my chest. And all of a sudden these people come out of the woods. This man who looked like a lumberjack came up to in the woods and I ran up to him. I was like, help me, there's demons. And that poor
gosh.
This poor guy looked at him. The fear in his eyes made me scared. I jumped back. I thought they were demons that had materialized to try to get me to. It was crazy. hysterical. But
oh, sure. I mean, I can only imagine.
They started saying the knife's the demon, and I was very confused. And one of them came around and hit me on the back with this big log, and I rolled, and I was a crazed animal at this point. And then I ran to the fire. I put this ring around me, drew this ring, protective incantation that I thought, and I just started screaming at him, and like pushing him to hopefully get back. And they did. They kind of back, and they had flashlights. They were actually trying to get me help. These are real people.
Right.
And I remember I'm sitting there, my neck is bleeding. I look up at the stars, and I start screaming, not the demons this time. It wasn't the demons screaming. It was just my own pain. Like I was screaming, why? I started screaming, why? At God, the creator. And it's just, it was just, this is where my search had brought me to, because my whole life I just wanted to know, and I was just hurt, screaming, just why is this happening, and all of a sudden, like an instant, I felt this warm blanket of pure love and life and light surround me, and I was engulfed, and this angelic host just surrounded me. I mean, it's just like light, just boom, shoom, and like the demons just scattered, and I was completely surrounded by like warrior entities. I could feel the light beaming out of them, and all of a sudden I was innocent. I felt like childlike again. I was completely sober. I felt the joy of being alive all at once. I mean, it just happened completely, like I was like, oh, I'm alive. I'm protected. They say these I've been saved by these things, and I was weeping, and I remember I was like, I got to get out of this place, and I was so full of like joy, and I got a sock that had fallen off. I put it around my neck, and I just started walking away from the campsite down. It was dark. I walked in the woods. I just got out of there, and I was walking through swamps, and like things were cutting my feet, and I was barefoot, naked, blood, but I was so happy to be alive, and I was saved, and I like these entities were like protecting me. I could sense and hear demons far away, but they were like neutered dogs, they were like throw a stick at them, and they were like they wouldn't come close. And I got to the road, and it was like silhouettes of trees down this road, and this starry field of stars, and the universe was there, and it was holding me, and it was protecting me. And I walked, and finally I got to the hot springs, and these poor kids found these like teenagers. They were like, oh my God. And they gave me a towel, and I called the ambulance and all that. And so I went to the hospital. They stapled my neck.
Oh my gosh.
The doctors were like, they brought doctors in to look. They were just like amazed. They were like, everything is tattered and cut except your jugular vein.
Wow.
Like, and they had to use giant big staples. It was a mess. It was like a tattered mess. And
oh my gosh.
Praise God. And I got it. I was there for a couple days. They just released me. I was homeless. I didn't I remember, the hospital door opening up, this bright hot light, and I go out, and I'm just like, what do I do now? I had nothing. I had like $10 or something they gave me. I didn't even have anything. So I went to get my backpack. I thought, well, I'll just take a free bus back to the campsite, get my camping supplies. And I go, and I'm walking up the road, to the trail, and there's these other people kind of, because it was a hot spring there, and there was this young lady who saw me. She was walking up. She was like, "Whoa," because I had a bandage. She was like, "You're the guy. You're the guy." She was like, "My family, we were camping, and we heard a whole group of people. Like they literally heard a group of demonic. They thought it was like a group of covenants, like witches or something. They said like they heard this group of people chanting weird noises, and that was the people who had come to help me."
Oh my gosh.
So that was trippy because it wasn't just me tripping out on mushrooms. They actually heard like a whole horde of people speaking weird gibberish and
Right.
stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a trip, and I'm like, whoa, okay, I got my stuff. And I didn't know where to go, so I hitchhiked to the Rainbow Gathering, which was in Wyoming at the time. So I was in Oregon. I didn't know where to go. I went there, tormented, still very tormented. It wasn't like I was exorcised at that point. I didn't have an exorcism necessarily. I was saved, but I was very much continued to be tormented. And then I went to the Rainbow Gathering, and there's these people said, "Hey, there's a kitchen there, like a camp called the Bread of Life. It's a Christian kitchen." And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to go there," but I was desperate because I would go to sleep and I'd hear like whisperings, and the demons were just after me. And I remember I went to the camp, and they were just some loving old ex-hippie Christians who were just
that's awesome.
all natural and filled with the Holy Spirit. And they didn't preach. They were just cooking food and being a family and joyous. And
like the complete opposite of everything you had encountered up until then. Just like people walking it out in reality, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's incredible, Cole.
The spirit, the presence of goodness was so strong there that I knew that I could sleep. I knew that the demons couldn't get me in this camp. And that's where I met Jesus Christ. I went to wash my cup because they serve food. I went to wash at the hand station, and there was this tree with a sign hand painted, and it said, "I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger. He who believes in me shall never thirst." And then there was another one that said, "Our righteousness is as filthy rags," but it says, "The gift, salvation is the gift of God, not by works, lest anyone should boast."
Man should boast. Yeah.
And Jesus shot into me like it says the word is living and active, and it was alive. Like Jesus, the one who had spoken to me when I was a kid and invited me, it was that presence. And I knew that person, and it shot into me, and I knew Jesus is the way. And that started my journey. I ended up, there's so much I could tell, but we're getting so far into the story.
Because it's such a great, it's just such an incredible story. I mean, I feel like that's kind of how it is. Like you'll tell this portion of it, and then if as you get like invited to go on different other shows and keep telling it, you just keep telling it, and it's gonna really unlock something for somebody.
That's right.
For sure.
That's right.
But how do you have a whole lifestyle, a whole lifetime of in an hour and a half? It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I did get delivered. I had a lot of exorcism sessions, really nasty ones. The demons came out screaming, speaking. It was very weird because I didn't know anything about this stuff, but the Christians knew. I was like, you guys knew all this, like all this time? Like, wow. So,
oh man,
here I am. I have beautiful children. I'm grateful to be alive. My wife and I now, our heart is we minister through an organization called Lovearoo that goes to the Bonnaroo Music Festival.
That's so awesome.
We set up a bohemian tea house that's really cool and hang out to carpet and couches, and we just love on people and pray. It's kind of like a place for a spiritually safe place that people can come. And so, yeah, that's the Magical Ducklings. I make music that's psychedelic music for people who are coming out of it. So I want people to listen to my music on acid. Like, that's my target audience.
Nice. Yeah.
That's what I make the music for, is people who are tripping, going on a journey, and I'm trying to bring them to have an encounter with Jesus. And so that's what the Magical Ducklings is. Anyway, yeah, it's a long story. We've taken like 2 hours. Oh my
No,
God.
this is
Is it not
amazing.
that long?
No, see, the reason that I wanted to just let you kind of cook is because, you know, the way, like, the ups and downs of that, like, it's so important to see where you were without the Lord and then where you are now, and how he restores. He restores for his glory and for your good. And so you're doing exactly what he purposed you to do, coming through that journey. But he restored your love of music. He restored your creativity. I mean, it's absolutely amazing that you're kind of doing the same thing, and you're able to now minister to these people that are just so broken and really not even thought of at all. I mean, I don't think that many churches have a ministry for, festival train kids that are homeless. And, when you were talking about, I really want to just say this generally to anyone listening that comes across this, when you see that kid, you're painting a picture of like some hippie kid in Portland on a bike that's like just absolutely drugged out of his mind, in a residential neighborhood. I see kids like that all the time around here. Like, and how bad is my heart when I'm like, oh, I wish we could just get rid of them. I'm still like that. Like, cause it's like, oh, they're in the neighborhood, but how different would that person's life be if you just stopped and asked God, like, hey, how can I minister to this person right now? Because maybe that kid needs help, or maybe there's something you can offer, or the person that asked you for, a couple bucks. Is it really that bad to just, you don't know what they're going to do with it, and how a kind word and maybe giving them a couple bucks could just be like, hey, I don't know what you're going to do with this money. I'm not just going to assume you're going to buy drugs, but God loves you. You're loved, you're seen, you're a person. You're not just the demons that you're manifesting. I mean, that was a crazy picture that you painted of you riding that bicycle, because I see those people all the time. And how many times, how many opportunities do you pass by?
Yeah, it's amazing. What you never know what people are thinking.
No, you never know what they're experiencing. I mean, that's just wild, Cole.
Yeah,
Man, and I love that you're ministering at Bonnaroo. I know so many people like that. I mean, obviously not now, because we're all like, old ladies that have kids. But I mean, for a while, probably still know some people that go to Bonnaroo and just hang out. And, the festival scene is definitely a huge scene.
Yeah.
But there are broken people that are looking for escape. And I love that you are just creating an inviting space. Have you, just real quick, I know we have been on here for a while, and I would love to have you back for sure, because this is a fantastic story. But do you have any kind of, outside of your own redemption here with where God's brought you to with this ministry, are there any stories that you've come across that are similar to your own, of people that maybe you've been able to minister to, or just anything like that you could share?
Sure. Oh man, wow. You know, there is story. I have been to another festival where someone actually tried to hack their neck open with a machete on
Oh my
DMT.
gosh. Oh, yeah.
But the one that's really closest to home, I have a dear friend of mine, love him dearly. He was in the homosexual lifestyle, 100% in San Francisco. And he had, it's a long story, but he knew my wife and I. He knew because there was a time my wife and I came kind of back to the Lord. It's a long story, but
Sure.
We've been married 10 years, and I had a real hard time where I went back into drinking and different things for a couple of years. And but I met my wife, and I brought her to the Lord, and we all now we've been serving the Lord for a long time now, like almost 9 years. So, because we got married about 10 years ago. But
That's awesome.
So anyway, but he knew us in our downtime when I wasn't really walking right. And so he would call us and ask us to pray for him because he knew we were Christian now. And but he had a demonic attack where he was in this warfare in his apartment alone. He felt possessed, and and he ended up hacking his wrist open, cutting the tendons all the way to the bone. And he laid in his blood for like 3 days.
Oh my God.
And they got festered, and he got put into a psych ward hospital. They were going to amputate his arms because it was so bad, but they saved his arms. But he called us from the mental hospital and he said, because he heard my story, and he said, I believe in demons now. I believe in God. I believe in the devil. I know what you were talking about, Cole. That happened to me. And he came and lived with us. We went and picked him up from the hospital and brought him back to Tennessee. He lived with us, and we just loved on him. And as he was healing from his wounds, he couldn't even shower without help,
Oh yeah.
We just loved on him, and he became born again. He got delivered, massive deliverance from demons, where they throw him on the ground and slithering around like snakes, and these Christians cast devils out of him. And now he is leading Bible studies, men's group. He is like on fire for the Lord. He loves the Lord God, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's oh my
gosh,
the closest story I could give you of God pulling someone out of the fire. So,
well, I mean, he does it all the time, but it's just like that. It's just crazy. It's just so wild.
Yeah.
I'm just so thankful that you survived all that. Like, and oh my, I mean, I'm sure, but it's just like, holy moly. When we were talking on the phone, I didn't, you never actually know what a story is until someone's really telling it. And it's just, oh my gosh, the darkness, just the utter darkness that he pulled you out of is absolutely amazing. For sure.
Grateful.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. He loves us so much.
I know.
God loves us. And God, people think of God as having rules but the rules are like to love. That's the rule. Like,
I know.
To love like one another. Thank God that God cares so much about goodness. He's like, in my heaven, there's not going to be any evil. And so I'm going to work on your character here on earth. You've tasted what darkness is. You've got to choose, by your free will, you've chosen. So now, that's what this whole reality is about, is God purifying the heart for those who say yes. I mean, and getting us ready for the eternal heaven that will have no darkness at all. That that all of our brothers and sisters will be 100% trustworthy, completely devoid of any lies. Everyone will have the best intentions, will love one another forever and love God together and experience, the Bible says that no eye has seen, nor ear heard, or mind conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. Like, boom.
Right?
It's mind-blowing.
If that's not a hippie festival, I don't know what is.
That's right.
Cole, come on, man.
It's awesome.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your testimony. Yeah, I know.
Well, thank you so much. Very welcome.
Yeah.
I'm honored and blessed.
Oh man, I just want to have you come back on, and so now it's funny because I tell people like, come on and tell me your testimony, but then let's talk about like crazy stuff.
There's a lot more stories. I've had to trim a lot. There's so much. I'm like writing a book, and
oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, there's so
cool.
much. There's just so much. But
Oh man, yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to have you come back on. So why don't you, Cole, go ahead and share with everybody how they can find you. How can we become magical ducklings? I want to hear all about it. So you can share with everybody. Yeah,
for sure. Well, our website is themagicalducklings.com. That's the music. We've got a YouTube channel, The Magical Ducklings. You can hit me up if you want to connect with me at info@The Magical Ducklings. If you like the music, I would say if anyone's interested in helping who are Christians who want to get into ministering at the festival scene, that the Bonnaroo, what we do is a very good place to do it, because it's a very it's not that intense. It's not like going to Burning Man,
right?
It's very much a safe space for helping, because we're on the edge. We're not in the festival, but we're right near the camping.
Okay.
We're on the trail that everyone walks into the camp spot, so it's very cool. Lot of loving, it's just a safe place to really minister. So I would say go to love@rue.org is the organization that we're part of. That's
great
info.
Cool. And I'll definitely put that in the description for everybody. So, Cole, thank you. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We are doing a Dolby Atmos surround sound live performance every night at Bonnaroo in our bohemian tent that has like 12 speakers all around you, 2 a.m. to 4:30. So.
Oh man, I thought I was a big hippie. You got me beat, Cole.
It's gonna be cool.
I'm so excited. Oh yeah, definitely. I'm gonna put all that in the description for sure. Cole, Christine, thank you so much. All right, and guys, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, remember, the truth is out there. God is with you, and everyone always ends up in the kitchen. You have been listening to Sasquatch and Sourdough. I'm Christina, and thank you so much for tuning in. Sasquatch and Sourdough is so much more than just a podcast. We are a community of kindred spirits, united by our curiosity and fascination with the extraordinary. And we want to bring you into the conversation. So whether you've had a brush with the unexplainable, seen something that you can't quite wrap your head around, this is your space. We invite you to join us as we break bread and break down the barriers between the known and the unknown. If you want to share your story, you can email us at sasquatchandsourdough@gmail.com or send us a DM on Instagram. Until next time, remember, the truth is out there, God is with you, and everyone always ends up in the kitchen.